So Palantir stock has dropped dramatically from its all-time highs. It's now over almost 30% in just 5 days. And of course, the panic is starting to kick in full effect. Now listen, I really do understand. I know from personal experience, it's very painful to open your portfolio and see these kind of drawdowns in such a short time frame. I personally have a position in Palantir myself, so trust me, I really do feel the pain. But before you panic and start selling into fear, let's take a step back and actually look at what's happening with a clear, level head and a clear headspace. We don't want to make emotional decisions, because if you haven't been through something like this before in the markets, then this is a great opportunity for you to actually experience the psychology behind the markets and for you to truly understand just how much of this whole thing is purely a psychological game. Because when you take a step back and actually zoom out on what's actually going on, this is just natural market dynamics. The market is just correcting its valuations, and it is reflecting the psychological state of all the investors in the market currently. It's not a reflection of the company itself. So today I'm going to break down why exactly we shouldn't be panicking and why the stock is correcting so rapidly, and overall what we should do and how I will personally be managing this moving forward. So hopefully this can give you a calm and clear perspective of what you should do when it comes to Palantir. Okay, now before we start, there's something I need you to ask yourself. Are you a trader or are you an investor? You should have a clear understanding of what your goals are before you even start, because trading and investing are just not the same thing. Traders focus on short-term movements in stock prices. They look for quick gains, cut losses, and try to time the market. So if that's your goal, your strategy will be completely different than someone who is investing in an actual company. You cannot forget that when you're investing, you are buying shares of an actual company. You're becoming an owner of an actual company. So as an investor, you should focus on long-term value. And you should also be aware that the stock price does not represent the actual intrinsic value of the company, but rather a reflection of investor sentiment. So if you're a trader and you're looking to make quick gains, you've made some profits, take that bag and you run, that's totally fine. It's going to be a totally different mindset for investors. Investors have to focus on the bigger picture. There's no ifs and buts about it. And time in the markets will always be timing the market. That is, if you really see long-term value in the company and the fundamentals behind it. You have to ask yourself, has anything changed with the company in the last 5 days? If Palantir is still really fundamentally strong, then this dip is really an opportunity and it should not be taken in such a negative light. Even though seeing the numbers in your portfolio do hurt, you cannot let that emotion dictate what is best for you to do. And panicking is not the solution. So the key to making money in the stock market is knowing who you are before you even start investing. If you're a trader, that's fine. But if you're an investor, you really need to focus on the bigger picture, on the business and not the stock price. Now, with that being said, I do want to cover why we're seeing such a large sell-off in the markets right now and what may be causing this. So I do want to address those points briefly. It's also important to note that when you have very euphoric cycles in price valuation, it is completely normal for pullbacks and corrections. That is just the natural state of the market. It'll always be this way because, again, the stock price is a reflection of the sentiment of the mass consciousness of investors. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it really is just a reflection of that. And if you take a look at the Palantir chart, if you step back just a year, we're still up tremendously over a year. And because we're so used to this euphoric cycle, we forget how far we've actually come with Palantir. The only people that are really in trouble are the ones who are buying above 115, 120. Yeah, of course you're going to be in trouble because you've waited so long and you're chasing at this point a euphoric cycle. But if you've been here from the very start like I have, you have to remember that we're still up hundreds of percents since the $10, $20 range. Because that's the reality of the situation, is that this stock has had expansive growth over the past couple of years and we cannot discount that. So when we see this 20-30% drop, you cannot pretend that this is a surprise. We all knew something like this was coming. With that being said, Palantir was entering a stage in the euphoric cycle when any negative news or a negative connotation of those news was going to trigger this panic sell-off, and it for sure has. The market grabs on to any negative news and it runs with it. We are at a point of ultra sensitivity for the stock. So any small trigger is really going to cause panic. So what were these triggers over the past week? Let's take a look at that really fast. So there's two things. The first one was that Alex Karp, which is the CEO, adopted a new trading plan, which basically says he can sell up to $1.23 billion worth of Palantir stock. This is essentially a legal way for insiders to be able to sell shares, but it's a predetermined plan for them to be able to do so while being compliant with the SEC, which is totally fine. It's actually a very normal procedure because company executives often sell shares for all sorts of reasons. They either need to diversify their portfolio, pay some taxes, or just personal financial planning. There's so many reasons for insiders to sell, and this happens all the time in a scheduled manner. It's not something that we didn't know was coming. But again, the market takes these news and it runs with it in the most negative way possible, over exaggerating every single time. It's also important to note that he actually reduced the amount of shares he was scheduled to sell. So he said, hey, I'm not going to actually sell as much as it was planned. I'm actually reducing that number, meaning that he's putting more conviction into his own company. But people don't see it that way. The second point is that there's going to be government budget cuts, especially in the defense sector. So the defense secretary did come out and say, hey, we're going to identify about $50 billion of cuts from the 2026 budget in hopes to prioritize the funds into things that they want to focus on. So I do understand that investors are worried because a large portion of Palantir's revenue does come from government contracts. However, we have to take a closer look at the situation. While they may be doing budget cuts, that doesn't mean everyone is getting less money. That just means they're reprioritizing from certain sectors to another. And in this case, Palantir is a key player in providing efficiency, especially through AI, which the government has said that they are investing a lot of money into. So actually, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those funds get redirected and Palantir actually gets more of the budget because its powerful AI and data analytics aligns with the military strategic plans. So the key takeaway here is that these news aren't as bad as they really seem. Overall, Palantir is still such a strong company. The revenue continues to expand. Their last filing was phenomenal. And as AI adoption grows, Palantir's role in data analytics is only going to grow. So nothing really has fundamentally changed with Palantir over the past 5 days, or even the past couple of weeks. Nothing has changed. The company still remains that strong, growing company that it was just a couple of weeks ago. They are executing well and they have really strong guidance, and that's the story that they will continue to tell. Of course, we'll have to see what happens, but so far nothing has changed with respect to those fundamentals. So finally, for my personal take on what I'm doing with the stock, I did make a video which you can check out here saying that I was going to de-risk and rebalance my portfolio, and I did sell about 15% of my position above $100 to $120. But again, I sold into strength. I didn't sell into fear. I sold into euphoria, which is when we should be selling. If we're going to sell, those are the times when you want to do so. And I'm not selling my position into panic. By the way, if you are a Palantir investor and long-term holder, it's okay to play puts or option strategies to minimize your risk. That way you can still profit in some of the downside. I personally have done this over the past couple of days, and I've made some profits by playing puts against my position. So I still believe in the long-term story and growth of the company, and I do see this company reaching above the all-time highs by far. It just needs to go through time and those euphoric cycles, as any high growth stock will experience. The people who are really panicking are the ones that had been chasing this after it already had run up hundreds of percents. Of course you're going to be worried because at this point you're chasing the stock. If you started buying at 120, you didn't measure your risk appropriately, and that's totally on you. That's why you don't chase the hype. So for long-term investors who have had positions and are dollar cost averaging into the stock for a while now, you really shouldn't be worried. There's no reason to panic. Everything is fine. Let's take a moment. Let's just give the stock some room to breathe. Palantir is still one of my highest conviction stocks. This pullback is healthy, and I see it as a buying opportunity and not necessarily a reason to panic. Now, of course, this is not financial advice at all. You do whatever you want, you do your own research. But in my opinion, it's best not to make any emotional decisions, but rather wait until you have a clear headspace and you're not being fueled by the panic in the news. But let me know what you think about Palantir, if you're holding, buying more, or completely selling out. Would love to hear that. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you found any value in this, it'd be awesome if you hit the like button and potentially consider subscribing. That would be super cool. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.